Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin Salyer, and I'm the Director of Workforce Development and Education for the Highlands Economic Partnership based in Putnam County, but we do serve 4 counties, Jackson, Overton, Putnam, and White, all located in the Upper Cumberland region of Tennessee. In 2020, we began offering one of our longest standing programs, family engagement sessions, virtually to accommodate the shifting landscape of remote work and the new workplace health and safety precautions. Traditionally held in the workplace during shift changes and lunch breaks, family engagement sessions cover a variety of topics relevant to individuals and families, and then in those families, members of all ages, as well as coworkers. Today's guest speaker, Barbara Kannapel, will be discussing prevention education and recovery resources available to both individuals and businesses. And we understand that this is a big topic to tackle in 30 minutes or less, but we believe that as we connect people to education and resources, we are spreading important awareness, promoting mental health, and will hopefully prevent or at least diminish substance misuse in the future. And this can drastically and very positively impact whole families as well as our workforce and workplaces. We're excited to have Ms. Barbara here with us today, and so I'm going to give her a very brief introduction and then let her dive right into sharing her information. Barbara Kannapel is a certified prevention specialist and has been the director of the Smith County Drug Prevention Coalition for almost 10 years. She has facilitated prevention education to Smith County youth and parents over the past 20 years. She and her husband, Don, have worked for more than 10 years with the Youth and Family Resource Center, called The Spot, a community outreach program that promotes healthy relationships and offers creative programs to help junior and senior high school teens make good choices, establish a solid foundation for life, and positively impact their schools and community. We're excited to have Barbara here with us virtually today to talk about this very important topic. So without further delay, Barbara, the floor, or the screen rather, is all yours. Here we go.
Thank you, Caitlin. It's really a privilege to be able to share this information, even if it is virtual. We are looking forward to the in-person meetings again, but it's really great to be able to have this opportunity still to, like you said, bring awareness and education. And so I'm especially interested in bringing information and awareness to business and industry because I served on the county commission for many years and knew the impact that business and industry have in our community, because they are vital to the health and welfare of our community, really. And coalitions support and partner with 12 sectors of the community, business and industry being a very important part of that. But businesses often struggle with developing and keeping a strong workforce, especially due to substance misuse in the workplace, and that does affect all of us. So most businesses, I think, want to bring change, but maybe don't know exactly where to begin. So maybe this is something we can begin together. And coalitions across the state are always looking for ways to offer support to this very key partner. So it's not moving.
On my end or on your end?
On my end. And I've gone through it. There we go. Okay, just a little slow. Sorry about that. So some of the things we want to cover today, of course, education, what should we know, identifying the problem and looking at the costs associated with the problem. How can we increase prevention efforts? One of those ways could be to reduce stigma. And then what training and resources can we offer? And so let's look at what substance abuse or misuse is. And that is the using illegal drugs or even legal drugs in a manner other than they've been prescribed, or taking medications that have not been prescribed to you. And substance use disorder is defined by the National Institute on Drug Abuse as a brain disease that causes a person to continue using that substance, even if they've had legal issues or other harmful consequences, they still continue to use. And so we want to look at why we've seen the increase and the epidemic that we're facing today in substance misuse, and we're going to look at some of those consequences. So first of all, substance misuse does cost our nation about $600 billion annually. 57% of adults report some form of substance misuse. 24% report that they have a relative or a close friend with substance use disorder. And so that means 7.2 million U.S. adult workers reported misusing an opioid at some point. And this was in 2016, so those numbers probably have gone up. So the scope of the problem is that 1 in 4 people misuse prescription opioids that they've received from their physician. One in 4, that's a lot. And sadly, this is probably the saddest part, is that 222 Americans lose their life every day to an opioid overdose. And when I first had this slide, it said 131, and this was back in 16 or 17. So it's gone up from 131 individuals daily to 222. And we also have seen an increase in the number of overdoses since COVID-19 began. And this could be connected to an increase in job loss, in mental health issues, depression, and that kind of thing. So let's look at a little bit the history of how we've gotten to where we are today. Prior to the mid-1990s, pain medication was used for cancer treatment, for end-of-life care. But that began to change in the mid-90s because of a couple of things having to do with the pharmaceutical industry. Number one, they downplayed the risk of addiction associated with pain medications. And also they exaggerated the benefits of those medications. And so we began to look at why this was happening and what we could do about it. In 2001, around 2001, the Intractable Pain Treatment Act was adopted by a lot of states, including Tennessee. And this act required physicians to prescribe opioids for their patients with chronic pain, or they had to refer them to someone that could prescribe those medications. So this did lead to a huge increase in prescriptions for pain being written. It led to an increase in drug dependence and a huge increase in babies being born addicted or with neonatal abstinence syndrome. So coalitions began to educate their communities regarding this legislation, and thankfully it was repealed in 2015. And so that put the patient care back into the hands of the medical providers. So we now are seeing a decrease, quite a decrease, in the number of prescriptions being written, as well as the number of babies being born addicted. So you may have even seen some lawsuits connected to this legislation. And some studies have revealed that has given us a little bit more information about pain medications. And it showed that opioids don't relieve pain or help injured workers return to work as much as we may have thought initially. And even more recent studies show that Tylenol taken with ibuprofen may even give greater pain relief than opioids, in fact. So next, let's look at what is the impact of substance use disorder on workers and on their families. And of course, a lot of times that job loss happens. And as I've worked with industries in the communities, I've really been interested in what happens when that individual loses their job and how can we put more resources into their hands. Should they be ready at this time to seek help? And also mental and physical health deterioration, financial issues, obviously, Often uh, relationships are affected by substance use disorder. And then we see a lot of children being removed from the home. And about 80 or 85% of children being removed from their home does have to do with alcohol or drug use. And then sadly, in those later stages of addiction, prison often happens, or even death. So there is also, as we've said, a great impact in the workplace, and that's what we want to especially look at today, because 75% of people with substance use disorder are working. And so we see lost productivity for the employer, $2 billion a year, absenteeism and presenteeism, about $10 billion a year. That's a new word for me, presenteeism, and that's being at work but unable to function at 100% due to impairment, or maybe even concern for a family member that might be struggling with addiction. So we see increased workers' compensation costs, increased healthcare costs when they're already at an all-time high, and increased lost work time. And then definitely we want to look at the compromise to workplace safety and health. So what are some behavioral warning signs that we can look at? A change in attitude or personality, a tendency to avoid contact with their family or friends, change in their activities or their hobbies, drops in grades at school or performance at work. They may be more isolated, they may be more moody, and a tendency to steal does often go along with drug addiction. And that tendency to steal, of course, may have to do with needing to cover the costs of substances. Families can also may see an increased request to borrow money with no explanation as to how that money is being used. So communities and coalitions want to look at action plans so that, especially in the workplace, but in all sectors, how can we increase prevention and provide more resources? And so what you see on this screen are initiatives by coalitions that include media campaigns regarding safe disposal of medications, such as this one in the bottom of the screen. Was a billboard by DeKalb County Prevention Coalition that says, "Don't be an accidental drug dealer. Count your medications. Keep them in a locked and safe place in your home, and then drop them off at the medication disposal boxes across the county." And most counties across the state of Tennessee have one, such as this one here with Sheriff Mark Gammons in Macon County. And there is a 24/7 drop box location there in the Sheriff's Department lobby where folks can just drop off those medications. And this could prevent theft or diversion of medications. This was a great campaign across the state of Tennessee over the last several years to make sure that families aren't sharing medications or medications aren't being stolen, because we do know a high percentage of individuals that abuse medications are getting them from family and friends, and data does show us that. So one of the things that I did want us to talk about today, and coalitions talk a lot about and bring awareness to, is stigma. And we want to look at what that is and why is it important in recovery? How does it affect people? Stigma is that shame or disgrace that attached to something in our culture that we see as socially unacceptable. And we know that our words matter. Language does matter. Sometimes we might use the terms junkies or addicts, and we know that our words can be encouraging or they can be very discouraging. So we want to choose our words maybe a little bit better in relation to substance use, because we know that stigma interferes with people coming forward for help, because guilt and shame are a really heavy burden to carry, and they can cause us to feel as if there might not be hope for recovery. So we want to change our language, because the key to recovery is support and compassion. People who are in pain and might have a substance use disorder need comprehensive treatment, not judgment. A lot of times substance use begins from childhood trauma or neglect, and we want to look for not only help for that substance abuse, but we want to look for more healing causes of things that maybe that are causing that pain. So it is time to get uncomfortable and talk about substance use and talk about mental health and even suicide. So what are some words that we can change? And here are just a few of those words that we might need to think about. And I know as I started in prevention and knew very little about addiction or recovery, I had to look at some of my attitudes and some of my language, and some of those words might be, if we call an abuser or a user or an addict or a junkie, instead we could say a person with alcohol or opioid use disorder. Instead of calling a drug screen clean or dirty, we could just say positive or negative test. Relapse could be an unhealthy return to using, or binge might better be stated someone that's at risk, or a use that's at risk or risky. Dependence we could say heavy use or an episode. And then instead of calling it a problem or even a moral failure, that person we might say in need of support or treatment. And there's also a lot of controversy about medically assisted treatment, and that might be another training for another day. But each individual does struggle, and their struggle is different. And so we want to look for ways to reduce harm for that individual as they journey toward recovery. So what can we look at as educational programs in the workplace? We can raise awareness to events that are going on that we can become involved in, such as Drug Take Back Day. And that's sponsored by the DEA, happens a couple times a year in the spring and in the fall, always includes law enforcement partnerships. And that's a time that families are encouraged to clean out their medicine cabinets, to dispose of unwanted medications, and that can prevent diversion or theft or accidental overdose. We can also become involved in events like National Prevention Week, Red Ribbon Week, and that happens in October, and a lot of the school students get involved during that time, and that encourages them to become involved actively in prevention at a young age, which we realize is so important. August is National Overdose Awareness Day, and then September is National Recovery Month, and there's also a lot of community events at that time that businesses can get involved in. And then just providing information, having a greater access to education information. And so we can provide supervisor training to recognize problem use, and we do offer drug-free workplace training at no cost to the employer on a variety of topics in the workplace. Coalitions a lot of times can offer posters that can be displayed in the workplace with the local drop box locations available and reminders of safe storage and disposal of those medications. And then a lot of prevention materials are available online through tn.gov or SAMHSA, as well as your local coalitions. But be sure to reach out and connect with your local coalitions. Something else that some businesses do is offer a toolkit for injured workers or workers that are out for surgery or an illness. Just have that little kit ready for that individual. Very important, I think, on here are what questions can we ask our doctor when they're prescribing pain medication? What are the side effects? What are the dangers? And especially maybe mention to your physician if there is a history of substance use disorder. Also, are there alternatives to pain medication, as we kind of talked about in the former slide? Also, I think something that's fairly new and inexpensive that we can all utilize is drug disposal materials. And as you see in the picture, doTERRA is a little packet of material that you can just tear the top off of it, pour it into that bottle of medication. Maybe you've got some medication left over that you don't need after that surgery. And so when you pour that substance in, put the cap back on, it actually dissolves the medication. And so it makes it safe to dispose of by just putting it into the trash can. And then offering more facts about drug use and substance use. So those little toolkits might be handy, and I think they'd be inexpensive for the employer to put together, and coalitions could help with that, as well as a monthly newsletter. The Smith County Drug Prevention Coalition and also other coalitions do provide a monthly prevention education newsletter to businesses and industries at no cost. It can be attached to their paycheck. It can be counted toward a part of their drug-free workplace training requirements. And we know being a drug-free workplace does sometimes offer discounts on liability insurance. So I know many businesses partake in that. Another simple and inexpensive tool that could be used are confidential surveys. I know sometimes medical providers have those, but they could also be available in the workplace to employees. And this is just a simple survey that they could take confidentially. It might help them to recognize a possible substance use problem that could worsen and that could interfere with health and safety at home and in the workplace. And they would only be required to share that information if they chose to. So what if there is a potential problem, if there begin to be safety concerns in the workplace, a decline in performance, or someone is missing a lot more work? What do we do then? So we can provide confidential support, look at that EAP with the employee. Is it supportive, voluntary, confidential? Remembering that employee health-related information is protected by law under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but talking to an employee about substance use could be awkward. And so we might recommend go ahead and develop those talking points in advance from best practices that will be sensitive to the employee, protect the employee's rights, but also protect the employer as well. Because it is possible that if they are risking their job, they could be in late stages of active addiction and they may need immediate help. Some employers have considered having a workplace recovery support 12-step meeting, and such as Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. These are support meetings that have been proven successful, have been around for 30 to 40 years, and they usually meet weekly. As it says in the name, they are anonymous, and they can offer help and encouragement for long-term recovery. NA and AA, as well as a lot of faith-based support programs, provide accountability for that individual. And some of those individuals have been in those meetings many, many years in long-term recovery. So now they're definitely ready to offer support to those newcomers to recovery and offer their experience. Something that we had in our action plan too is Naloxone in the workplace. And Naloxone, if you're not familiar with it, is a life-saving drug that, when sprayed into the nose, quickly reverses the powerful effects of opioids during an overdose. This is a free training that's offered in the Upper Cumberland region, but in all regions across the state, and they provide overdose prevention kits at no cost. Because overdose can happen anywhere. It can happen in the workplace, and you want to be ready to save that life. And it's as simple as using that nose spray, but you always want to call 911 to get emergency help on the way. So there is hope. Recovery is possible. We always want to talk about hope, and we're seeing more and more people in long-term recovery. 26 million people live in long-term recovery. And so there are a couple of resources here that can be offered for those individuals that may be ready to get help. The Tennessee Red Line number is a 24/7 one-stop shop for substance misuse. and mental health referrals. We can provide posters for employers to put up in their workplace. And also, SAMHSA has a national helpline that is 24/7. And that Tennessee Red Line number, you'll actually talk with an individual. They will give you a soft handoff to some local resources that you can get in contact with. So there's always help, there's always hope, but we want to encourage those people to reach out to us. Because we know employers are key to reducing consequences of substance use in their community. Gainful employment is often stated as a strong deterrent of substance abuse and increases the desire to get help. So we want to extend a helping hand for many reasons, as we've seen in this presentation, because many of these initiatives can save lives, strengthen families, and reduce costs for employers and ultimately for communities, and that needs to be our goal. And so the Smith County Drug Prevention Coalition is located in Carthage. Our number is 615-588-1622. You can get a lot of education and information from our website, smithcountydrugprevention.org. And as we mentioned, for information on receiving training and the life-saving medication Narcan, you can contact our regional overdose prevention specialist for the Upper Cumberland. They are Suzanne Angel or Colby Lane. So be sure to contact them if you'd like more information about that. They can schedule a time for that short training and provide naloxone at no cost. Also, if you have other needs or other questions, we can come out to the workplace. Certified prevention specialists will set up a meeting with HR or managers, first responders in the workplace, and we can offer assistance and resources, and we're happy to do that. We want to serve those in our community and especially our businesses. So that's it. And I hope you've gotten some good information there that'll be useful.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barbara. I think that you've done a phenomenal job sharing a lot of great information in a short span of time. So I'm hopeful that this is something that people are going to be able to quickly reference if there is a need for assistance. And we will make sure that slides are available, resources are available. I'm actually going to go back before we dive into a few questions and make sure that your information is up on the screen so that people can write that down if they would like.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I've got a few questions I want to just quickly run through with you with some answers. So question one, what positive changes have happened over the past several years as coalitions have grown and collaborated across the state?
Well, I've been in this about 10 years. And as stated in the presentation, we have seen a drastic drop in the number of prescriptions being written. And some of that has to do with increased regulations for pain clinics that we've seen happening. And with that, many of those businesses have closed and some of the owners have even been prosecuted. So there's a lot better regulation surrounding those pain clinics. At one point, people were very concerned even having some of them in our communities. Others have been very helpful and reputable and a necessary tool. So we wanted to sort those out, and I've seen that happen over the last 10 years. Another positive change that has resulted in less prescription drug misuse was reducing the opportunity for doctor shopping. And so beginning in 2012, medical providers are required to enter the prescriptions for an individual into that prescription drug monitoring database. And this can provide health authorities timely information about prescribing and patient behaviors that contribute to the epidemic. So those are a couple of positive things, a lot more, but those are really positive changes that we've seen happen in our communities.
That's great. And as a community partner or as an organization within the community, is it possible for us to partner with coalitions?
Absolutely. We would love to have everyone partner with coalitions. As they become stronger, our communities become stronger, and we're working together, and we know networking and working together is key. So coalitions do have a lot to offer in their community, with their primary focus on prevention, of course, because every dollar that we spend on prevention, we save $4. So that's a pretty big savings to all of us. So bringing awareness and education within your community sector is an easy and needed way that you can serve. Even if you can't make those monthly meetings, you can always serve in your community sector and can lead in your community sector. Community partners share information on social media. They might attend planning meetings or even committee meetings that we have committees for each of the substances that we target. Community partners can show up and help with our community events, because we want as much visibility in our community as we can have. And so we do have a lot of booth events and a lot of media events in the community. So also, if you don't have time to give, coalitions are usually grant funded, and they're always looking for long-term sustainability in the community. So a financial contribution to your coalition is another way to be involved and sustained in the community. Strong coalitions are important to have safe and healthy communities. So every one of us can do something. That's our favorite term. Every one of us can do something.
I love that. And we can reach out to our regional representatives on the map that you shared with us, correct? Is that a good starting point?
That is a good starting point.
Perfect.
Yes.
As far as looking at the whole family, are there resources available to family members of those struggling with addiction?
This is a question that we get a lot, because a lot of family members want to get help. And all of us, every place that I speak, every place that we meet, there are family members in the audience that have someone that they love that's struggling. And so there are resources available to family members. As we mentioned, the Tennessee Redline number will put you in touch with resources in your area. But also local coalitions have usually compiled community resource lists that are available, offering a variety of support programs, food, housing, transportation, all those needed support.
Okay.
Also, coalitions can put you in contact with a Lifeline Coordinator. And that's a wonderful position that the state of Tennessee has put in place in every region. And Lifeline Coordinators are people that are in long-term recovery. And they're such an asset and resource that will work one-on-one with individuals and their families to find the treatment resource that's needed. There are also support groups such as Al-Anon to help family members better understand and cope with what's going on with their loved one's disease. Al-Anon says that if you have a family member that's struggling, the entire family is struggling. So Al-Anon is a great support program for families.
And we're going to try to do our best when we put together this video and kind of make our final edits. We'll put together a package, these resources that Ms. Barbara has shared with us, to make sure that they're available and readily accessible to you. And we'll try to make sure that we keep an eye on those social accounts like she mentioned, so that we can do our part through the Highlands in sharing resources to individuals, families, and our businesses in the area. I do have one final question for you. In your time working in prevention, what are some of the barriers that you've experienced in reducing substance misuse?
There were a lot more barriers than I expected when I walked in that first day, really in 2011, when we began here in Smith County. So in addition to the stigma attached to substance use, there are a lot of different mindsets and viewpoints, and I had different mindsets and viewpoints when I first started, knew very little about the topic. So often, as in my case, additional education is needed, especially in the area of brain science and how the brain is actually affected long-term by drug and alcohol use. And some of those trainings, like, for instance, by Dr. Stephen Lloyd, really changed the way that I looked at substance use disorder. Also, in the past, there's been very little access to treatment. But we are seeing that change in the area of substance use as well as mental health, because those two often are co-occurring. So we are seeing an increase in the number of rehab facilities that offer grants for individuals that don't have insurance to cover it. That was always a struggle, that I would see people that wanted help, and then they typically maybe had lost their job and thus their health insurance. So this increase in the number of recovery facilities that have grants does offer a greater opportunity for recovery for a lot of individuals. And our Lifeline coordinators are very much aware of those facilities that offer grant beds. So again, our Lifeline coordinators across the state are a great resource for us.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara, for taking time out of your day. I know you're very busy to record this session with us. And I'm definitely looking forward to the time when we can all be back together in person. I know that you mentioned earlier in the session, and I just want to reiterate that you are able to go into the workplace and assist employers, employees with the resources that you have available to you. So I definitely want to make sure we say that again at the end of this session, and just how thankful I am also that we're able to still get together through technology, through Zoom and other opportunities, so we can share this message. I know it's better when we can get together in person, but at least we're able to reach our audience and sometimes broaden our audience through this technology. A quick reminder to everyone, this video link will be accessible on the Highlands Economic Partnerships Facebook page. There will be a link on our Twitter account, as well as permanently housed on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to like, drop comments, ask questions, share it out to your social accounts so we can maximize our reach. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to Barbara, or if you want to reach out to us at the Highlands, and we can connect you with this Smith County Drug Coalition. We would be more than happy to do that. Our number here at the Highlands is 931-526-2211. And then, of course, the screen that Barbara shared had her contact information on it as well, and still should be viewable to you now. Okay, viewers, well, if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. We hope that you have gained some valuable resources and things that you can refer back to in time if need be. So please keep an eye out for our virtual family engagement sessions that we plan to have each quarter in 2021. And for the employers out there, if you're interested in having one of these sessions live in the workplace at the appropriate time, please reach out to us. We have a long list of great guest speakers, great topics that can be addressed, whether it's regarding what students are dealing with in school, social media use, just a plethora of options. So please reach out to us. And until next time, thank you all so much. Bye.